Now let's look at drawing with Willow Charcoal. And I'm going to switch over to a spiral-bound sketchbook. A couple advantages to the spiral-bound sketchbook is, number one, that it lays open really flat, or you can actually fold it all the way back like this. You can hold it in front of you in the landscape or the portrait orientation. And the second advantage is, especially with the Daler-Rowney sketchbook, is that they're perforated. So if you accidentally, no, let me change that. You are indeed going to produce at least some masterpieces in your sketchbook. And once you've produced a masterpiece there, you want to be able to take it out and frame it. And that's a wonderful benefit of the spiral bound, is the perforation comes off, and there it is, ready to frame. So let's play with it now. The Willow Charcoal comes in 3 thicknesses: thick, medium, fat. And again, most of the time it's used in its broken state. I strongly recommend, if you've never played with charcoal before, that you do just exactly that. Play around with it. Find out how dark it will go. Figure out what are you going to do with the dust that is created. Lots of options. One is tap it carefully on a pre-selected space on your drawing table and find out the different kinds of lines. Find out what is the difference between using a thin piece of charcoal and a thicker. You could go back to a piece of sandpaper block to get a very fine line with your charcoal. Just play, play, play. Have fun with it. Now, how about if we do a little bit of learning how to draw, say, a human face? I love drawing human faces, and certainly that's one of the classic images in all of art. If you've never done this before, there are many different, some people say the head is the shape of an egg. I find that not very helpful because it's actually very difficult to draw an egg. So I tend to gravitate toward a ball in a bucket image to start out with. If you do that, and I could talk for hours, don't get me started on learning all the tricks for drawing the human face. Well, we'll just hit some of the high points. Halfway from the top, the crown of the head, to the chin, halfway across, draw a very fine line. That's where the eyes go. And then, of course, draw a line right down the middle. Virtually every drawing book you pick up that talks about how to draw the human face will have an image very much like this at the beginning. There's some reason we all do it the same way. It's very, very universal. Now, let me figure out where do the eyes go, where does the mouth go, and so on and so forth. Well, if you very carefully, by eye, estimate the halfway point between where the crosshairs meet in the middle here and the edge, and put a dot right there halfway in the middle, guess what? That's not where the eyes go. But it's a good measuring point. So draw halfway, and the pupil of the eyes goes just inside that dot. So if you draw a pupil inside there, and then iris around the pupil, let me switch to a finer piece of charcoal. And again, we could talk for hours on how to draw the eye, the shape of the eye. We here in America call this a football shape. I understand, apologies to all the rest of the world who has had football long before we did. Our football is shaped like an oval with points at the end, and that's not a bad way to conceive of the eyeball. Now, let's go back to doing some measuring. If you find the halfway point from where the crosshairs meet, right here in the middle, and the bottom of the chin, and put a line at that halfway point, that is not where the nose goes. That's right. And no, it's not where the mouth goes. It's, if you happen to have a mustache, that's right where the mustache goes. So the nose stops just a little above that, and the mouth goes just a little bit below that. Now, of course, when I talk this way, we're talking about the average human face. If you're an expert at drawing faces, of course, you don't need to watch this. But if you want to get started in drawing faces, understand that we're drawing, in a sense, a typical human face. And as you get better and better at drawing portraits, what you do, if you're a portrait drawer, is you already have firmly in the back of your mind what all the average human faces look like, and you simply have to look at the face in front of you and figure out how it's off from average. That's one way to look at it. To draw a mouth, here's a quick lesson on drawing a mouth. First of all, begin with a straight line, not, as many of us perhaps learn to do, a curved line. Curved line is great for the little smiley face guy, but it's not great for starting on a portrait. A straight line will get you much more realistic. How wide is the mouth? Well, one rule is straight down from the pupil, straight down from the center of the eye. That's typically how wide the mouth is. Just a quick comment on lips. 2 curves on top, 1 curve on the bottom, and the bottom lip is almost always wider than the top lip. And I would love to take time here to get into racial differences and understanding and explaining, but I won't. I just don't have time to do that. So I guess we're drawing, and I don't know yet if we're drawing a man or a woman. This is an, what's the word? Androgynous portrait. Fair enough? And now the bottom of the nose. Let me draw a blow up, a large version of the nose. A shallow curve with 2 very small curves pointing down on each end of it, and then 2 medium curves outside of that will give you a rough approximate nose. So I'm going to do that here. A wide curve, 2 tiny curves on either side of it, and 2 medium curves outside from there. Very rarely do you need to do any kind of line indicating the nasal bone that's up here. Sometimes, in men in particular, have a very strong nose bone. But most of the time, the sides of the nose are indicated entirely by shading. In fact, those lines are bothering me so much that I'm going to go back and erase them. Eyebrows, wide variety of eyebrows, just a little bit above the eye. Is that very technical? A little bit above the eye. How about the ears? The ears are almost as high as the eye. And here's a trick I often play on when I'm teaching this in person. I look at my students and say, okay, the ears line up with what? And of course, as I'm moving my head up and down, they go, because the position of the head dictates precisely what the ears correlate to. So if a person is looking straight ahead at you like this, generally speaking, the top of the ear, a little lower than the eye, the bottom of the ear, just a little bit higher than the mouth. And viewed from the front, most ears are more accurately rendered as a rectangle instead of, as most of us are inclined to do, a curve. Don't do the curve thing. Do it as a rectangle. And this is looking to me more like a woman. I think it was the mouth that did that. So I'm going to get rid of this manly chin and taper it down like that. And then we put some hair on her, and we will call that a human face. Good enough? I hope that's fun for you. You should be able to get to the point where you can do this kind of thing, draw a realistic human face almost in your sleep, so to speak. Now, I heard a very fun instructor one time after he had finished drawing a face like this. He said, now there's just one thing missing from this portrait, and it is the word wanted. Because this is the very sterile and boring rendering of a human face. Very rarely do we see somebody like this. Now, of course, unless you're looking at a guard at Buckingham Palace, most of us are moving. So you need to learn to draw the human face from all different angles. But having learned what you just learned, then you can begin to say, well, what if I'm looking at that face? Do you see how I'm using the same lines I did on the first drawing, but now I'm looking at them in a turned prospect? So that will help me get all of my features in the right position, even though I'm looking at it from an angled position. Now, what if you start drawing with charcoal, and then you say, boy, I'm really liking the way this is looking. I would love for this to have some color. Well, one of the great things about charcoal is that you can use it in tandem with pastels. And now, as soon as I use this pastel on this charcoal, of course, the charcoal is going to get smeared and subdued, which, of course, in the case of a portrait, is not a bad thing, because most of the lines in the human figure and portrait are quite soft. So we can mix different colors together, and I am going to do what I don't usually do, and I'm going to blend this with my fingers. I would prefer, a little bit of paper towel, a rag, a tortillon, which is that paper rolled up used as a blender. Many different things, but of course, being an artist, we'll use whatever's on hand at the moment. Having done, you can see here, this is a great little trick, because now I've got some color here. Let me add a little bit of pink to this. And of course, it's obvious I am drawing here a decidedly Caucasian white person, and I certainly am aware that not all the people of the earth have the same complexion. So time restricts me from doing a more thorough and racially sensitive rendering. But trust me, it's delightful to learn to draw people of every culture and race. So I'm coming back then with the charcoal and doing some of the details that redrawing some of the lines that I think are proper. This is not a beautiful drawing, but I'm talking at the same time and drawing off the top of my head. Hey, just one thought about this business of drawing off the top of your head. Perfectly appropriate way to draw. You just need to understand that any time that you're drawing from your imagination or from memory, think of yourself as a car battery. If you're drawing from memory, your battery is wearing down. And the way to, if you do that too much, you'll go down, you'll have a dead battery. The way to charge your battery back up is to draw by looking and copying, okay? That's sort of the hard work, if you will, of being an artist, is looking and drawing what you see. Many people, many students say, oh, I just like to draw what's off the top of my head. Well, there's a reason for that, and it's partly because it's easy. But if you want to become a better artist, you need to draw by looking at things. There, I sound like a school teacher, don't I? Good enough. Now let's switch over and start talking about pastels in particular.